Alfredo made up. You've probably had it many, many times. If you've ever had mac. Up a bit more on my own, okay? In addition to adding the butter. So now that this is melted, I'm just gonna lower it down. I'm just gonna add by eye, because I've done this, just a little bit of flour at a time. And I'm gonna take my whisk and I'm just gonna start to cook down the flour. You have to be patient when you cook it down. Otherwise, if you just rush it and I start to add in other ingredients like milk and stuff like that, or the cream too early, it's going to it's going to have that floury sort of grainy taste because I didn't take the time to cook down the flour. Okay. So I'm just nice and slowly. Thing with this stove, it's a bit tricky because it's either like on low, or sometimes the gust of wind will blow out the fan. I don't know if you can see that just yet. Quentin's helping us, but I'm just starting to cook this down. It doesn't look like much. It actually looks like dirty mud right now, and it instantly thickened up all of that fat that I had in there. Sometimes easier if I move it to one side of the pot so I can just help cook it down really well, but I'm just constantly whisking it to make sure that I get all of the lumps out. I don't want any lumps at all. I'm always going to season in layers. So I'm going to bring over my trusty spoon holder here just to be able to hold my spoon. And I'm going to start with some salt, obviously. Making a mess today. Some salt. And pepper. We always, a lot of people, by the way, just so you know, often people will prefer to use white pepper. Does anybody know the colors of the peppercorns? Peppercorns grow as a spice, Jeff, yeah. And they go through various color stages. So if you've ever bought in like a, raw peppercorns, actually, I think I have some here. So these is the color of peppercorns. You'll notice in here I have green and black and red and white. And as they grow, it's a spice, they go through color stages. Black is the middle, but they go through various colors as they get more mature. And so these are what they call rainbow or peppercorn medley. But people will often use white peppercorns in Alfredo to not disrupt the pure color of the white. So so that's where the color white pepper comes from. But for today, I'm just going to use regular black pepper. So little bit of pepper. And remember, anytime we season something, we always season in stages to build flavor. So again, it doesn't look like much now. It just sort of looks like, I know I'm waiting on Quinn here, but or can you see? Oh, here you go. You can kind of see. So it looks like this sort of dirty, I guess, muddy. Doesn't look like much, but believe it or not, it ends up making an incredible dish. It actually already smells incredible. I can smell now that the milk solids are beginning to toast down a little bit. And all I'm just really trying to do now is work down that butter, or the flour, excuse me, to make sure that it comes nice and smooth and you don't have that grainy or floury taste. Does not take long to put this together. Another predominant ingredient in traditional Alfredo, believe it or not, is actually nutmeg. So I'm going to take some nutmeg, which is also another type of spice. It's almost, some people use this in apple pies. It's not, it has a very fragrant flavor to it, but it's not extremely powerful, but it's used in bechamels and lasagnas, in white sauces and stuff like that. So I'm just going to taint a little bit of the flour now, and then I'll probably add some more later when I add in the cream. But at this stage, my roux is it's going from a white to a blonde, and then from a blonde it goes to a brown, and then it goes to a dark brown. And again, that refers to the different stages of roux. If I wanted to use it for something else, but I don't want to. I don't want too deep of a flavor, so I'm actually going to lower this down now, and I'm going to add in. This is a 250, half a liter of 18% table cream. So I'm just going to open this and put this in here. And I'm going to cut it with a little bit of 2% milk as well. Because I used flour, I want to stretch it a little bit because it's already going to come thick. So it's going to take some milk. And I would say about a cup of milk that I've added to that as well. So go back to my whisk now and just really slowly just start to whisk this together. No problem. Now it looks a little watery right now, but I'm going to let this reduce on the stove, okay, while I'm going to show you how to make the fresh pasta. One thing that's really important when you make Alfredo, or when, especially if you're using it with fresh egg pasta, which is essentially, like Emmanuel said, is just eggs and flour, is that you be able to control how thick the sauce is, because I'm using flour in the pasta. Just naturally, when I cook the pasta alone, it swells because it has, flour when it gets wet makes it really thick. Yeah, James. Sorry. It was half a liter, 500 mils, the whole little container. Just gonna bring over a couple clean spoons. Obviously, I want to taste as I go. A lot of people can. I mean, you can certainly add garlic, make it spicy. You can do other things to the Alfredo, but I just, in the simplest form, like it the purest way. I'm just going to give it a little taste. It's actually not bad, believe it or not, as it is. I'm just going to add a little more nutmeg. And I'm going to cheat. It might throw off the color a hair, but I'm just going to put maybe a teaspoon of chicken bouillon just to add another layer of flavor besides traditional salt. So this is still sodium based. However, it's in the mouthfeel, it's a little bit more rounded, and it's a bit of a cheating mechanism. So I'm just going to put a teaspoon of bouillon in my Alfredo, and then I'm going to go back to my whisk. So it's already starting to thicken up. I'm just taking the care to make sure that I scrape the sides down of the pot from time to time. I want this on the lowest heat possible now. I think it might be just a hair thick. I'm just going to put another, say, half cup of milk in here just to stretch this again. So that is now, to alter your recipe, a cup and a half, okay? Half a liter of 18% and about 1.5 cups of 2% milk. So this is ready to rock. I think, believe it or not, you see how simple that was. And now I'm going to bring you over to this trusty table here. And this is what I love about this recipe, is how simple it is. So these are the only really tools that I need. I have fresh eggs here. I have a bowl. I have flour over here. And I'm going to mix or show you something different with two different types of flour today. I'm going to be using what's called, where'd it go? Where's my 00 flour? There it is. So this is known as 00. This is farina. It's very expensive, actually. It is milled to the finest grind possible, and it's 00, which refers to the dye when you have the chaff of the head of the wheat and the endosperm and all the different parts of that. When it's milled, it's a lot more finer, and so it's really, really beneficial for fresh egg pasta. So I'm just going to show you with 2 eggs today to start, because I already have some made just to save time. The longer and the slower pasta dries, the better it becomes. I'm going to take half a cup of 00. It's just by eye, but you can see, I don't know, it's hard to see, but you can see how much finer it is in the milling process. So when Quentin gets back, he'll switch cameras. But it's milled really, really fine, and then you have the regular traditional all-purpose there. So I'm going to take 2 eggs. I'm going to crack them on a flat surface. And again, I'm going to use the whole egg this time. If I wanted a richer pasta, I would swap out, 2 yolks for 1 egg. But for now, for today, just to not waste anything, you can always use the white for something else, right? Like I could use it to make, if I was breading something, I would never throw it away. So, or brush the top of a pie. So there's 1 egg and 2 eggs. And now that I have 2 eggs, just like when I make a yeast bread, I want to be really cautious and sure about how much flour I add. It's a lot easier to add dry flour to a wet mixture than it is to, say, hydrate this, because then I have to crack another egg. I can cheat a little bit with water. Just so you know, by the way, there's a long history of who invented pasta. The Italians say they did, and then there's the Chinese that say, but it was Chinese have been making noodles for thousands of years, a lot longer than the Italians, but they were traditionally using water with flour to make their noodles. It wasn't until sort of Marco Polo came around and left and brought this to other countries where it really took hold, the sort of history of fresh egg pasta, again, which is super easy. So I'm going to go slow. I'm going to put a little bit, or start with a half cup of semolina, and I'm just going to take a kitchen fork. Some people, by the way, you might see this in an old Italian home where they dump the flour on the table and they make a well. That's fine and dandy. I'm just, in the interest of time, putting everything in a bowl. I'm just going to break the yolks, spin the bowl a little bit, and soak up the flour with these 2 eggs here. I know I'm going to need more flour. You can see how wet it is, but again, this is the stage that you want to be in. So I'm just going to, before I dump it on the table, I just want to make sure I soak up all that flour that's in there. And this has a nice white, vibrant color. I'm just going to quickly make sure I'm not burning my Alfredo because I don't want to taint it. It's going to give that a little... And this is getting really thick, which is nice because there's nothing worse than a really runny Alfredo. The best thing about making homemade pasta is I can take a bit of the pasta water and I can thin out my Alfredo if I need to later. Okay? So this is coming along really nicely. I'm going to come back over here, and now I'm going to switch to using, by the way, so that was about half a cup of all-purpose. Now I'm just going to put another half cup in my measuring cup, so that makes sense because it's approximately half a cup per egg. I put 2 eggs, so it would be around 1 full cup. But you notice I'm not going to put it all right away. I'm just going to put a little bit more in here just so it doesn't stick to the counter. Then I'm going to take a little more of my flour and use it as bench flour, and I'm going to lightly scatter it on my counter so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So now that I've soaked up all of my eggs, so when I dump it down, it doesn't run all over the counter, I'm going to knock it onto the counter like this. Of course, you could use your bare hands. I'm just using gloves today, just easier for cleanup. But I'm just going to make sure that I pull everything out of the bowl here. And now here's the fun part. You need to keep a bench scraper handy. I'm just going to, in the beginning, just sort of chop this up a little bit to make sure that it all gets soaked up. You guys remember a couple weeks ago I did gnocchi, I think, and the biggest thing I told you was to make sure that you don't knead it very much at all because you don't want to make tough the gluten in the potato because potatoes were really wet when they got steamed. So this is the opposite, actually. You actually want to have a lot of gluten. If you've ever had pasta and you heard the term al dente, does anybody know what that means? Anybody here speak Latin? Maggie? That is correct. So, which means that sensation or the feel that you get in your mouth, the al dente, it's very difficult to get al dente pasta from fresh homemade pasta because it's so quickly made and it doesn't take very long to cook. So the more that I actually knead it, the better it's actually going to turn out. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but now that I've sort of have it on the counter, all I'm really doing now is taking it and pushing it back into itself. And then I'll pick up the pace, but I'm going slow in the beginning, taking little bits from time to time. And every time I push it open, you can see how wet it gets. And then I just take a second to clean the counter as I go to make sure I don't waste anything. And you can rub your hands together as well. And then once it's a dough ball, then I'm going to start to knead it. And it's really important that you knead it for at least 10 minutes or as long as possible until this becomes a homogeneous color. Right now you can see pockets of dry flour and it's yellow in some parts. So I'm just starting to bring it together now. It is a little bit sticky, so I add a little bit more of my remaining flour that I need, but I go really slowly with it, and I can clean off my hands from time to time, and I can even make sure that I get into my bowl and clean everything out of the bowl as well, so I don't waste anything. And I'm just gonna bring this together now. So kneading with the heel of my hand, all of my upper body strength is pushing this pasta dough into itself. Good morning. Hi. Right. Didn't you come period 3 or did you come period 1 yesterday? Okay. Do we have any money for the cookies? Thanks. Thanks, George. Fresh homemade pasta, yep. Okay. If you come back in a bit, you can try some. So if you notice, all I'm doing is I keep cleaning the counter here and pushing it back into itself. It's very difficult to talk and do this. It's always going to be sticky, by the way, but I have just different techniques of kneading it, just rolling it sort of over into itself. And if I notice, see, it gets a little sticky, I just take a little bit of my dusting flour and I just really dust it. I rub my hands together to always clean the pasta from my hands. And then again, I'm kneading it. So I can switch hands if I get tired, which you will. You'll know you're doing it right if you're tired and exhausted. If you cannot, like, you shouldn't be able to talk and do this, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So the whole table's kind of shaking here, and I'm just, all my upper body strength is pushing the pasta back into itself like this. So kneading it. And I'm just pulling it apart like this. You see it's wet inside, and I just roll it sort of back into itself. It's really important that you go slow with the flour. Now that I have, let's pretend it's been 10 minutes in the interest of time. I mean, I have a good technique, so I'm able to do this a little bit quicker, but for the amateur, you're going to want to make sure that, again, this is something that you cannot over knead. Okay, so you'll know it's done when it's nice and soft and you poke it and it springs back. This is really soft and really fluffy and really nice. Now here comes the fun part. I'm going to take, I probably have 2 tablespoons of my flour left. I'm going to just take a little bit of that and put a lightly dusted counter down. And then I'm going to use my pasta attachment. These are really awesome. These are made in Italy. They're very expensive. Under no circumstances do they go down to the wash. They are essentially 2 wheels that sit apart from each other. And this particular one starts at 0 or 1, where the wheels are far apart. And as the number increases, the wheels get closer together and it squeezes the dough. I have some other models where the numbers are reverse, where the smaller the number, the closer they get together. But that doesn't really matter. I'm just going to cut this in half so it's easier to work with. And I'm going to turn on my machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through the number 1 or the first setting where the wheels are farthest apart first to, I'm going to do that 4 or 5, 6 times to develop the gluten in the dough. So I like to work at full speed. It's going to get loud here for a second. I'm just going to turn that on. And I'm going to take my dough and I'm going to shove it through the pasta machine, and instantly it flattened it out. Now, as soon as I flattened it out, it broke the crust, so it got a little bit sticky. So I just want to make sure that I scatter it with a little bit of flour before I fold it and run it through again so it doesn't get stuck inside the machine. It is a very wet dough, and if I don't monitor the hydration or how sticky it is, I run the risk of it splitting and falling apart. The good news with fresh pasta, though, is it's very forgiving, and if it did rip, I can just, smush it all back into a ball and then go back to the widest setting and run it through. But I'm just running it through. Look, I just keep changing the shape every time. Obviously, I'm being careful not to stick your fingers in there. This thing will pull your hand in. It's pretty strong, so you want to be careful. You hear that little pop there. Now that I've done that a few times, I'm not going to fold it over anymore. And now I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to run it through the numbers all the way until the desired thickness that I want. Because we're having this pasta today, I want it as thin as possible because I don't want thick mouthfuls of pasta. And as I told you, it will swell naturally on its own. So I go to 1. Now I use this dial here. The way you use the dial is you pull out and pull it to the next number. Like, you don't just force it. And so I just go to 2. And then I go to 3. And I just keep going 4. And I'm checking if I feel that it gets a little sticky along the way, just the smallest amount of bench flour, on the top of it to make sure that it doesn't stick. And I just keep going all the way through. If I find that it gets too long, I can cut it. Okay, there's 5, there's number 6. I'm always making sure that it stays straight and it doesn't fold inside the die, the running wheel, because I want it to be as nice as possible. But this is nice. There's 8. Sorry. So look at how long. This is one egg. It's about half the mixture. And I'm just going to run it through 8 one more time because I like it really, really thin. Of course, there are the other pasta machines that are attached to the side of the table. So I'm just going to take this pasta. I'm just going to lie it down on the table here for a second just to dry out. So this particular pasta sheet is still pretty wet. Here's the kicker. If I put this down on the table like this to dry, as it dries, it's going to stick to the other sheet. And even if I cut it later, it's still going to stick together when I put it in water. So I want to be mindful how I let it dry. I'm just going to come back over here and stir my Alfredo, which is looking amazing. It's like really thick now. I don't know if you guys can see this here, but look how thick it got only from a little bit of flour. Just stirring it once in a while. I might cut this down later, but for now I'm just going to lower it to the smallest setting and let it continue to cook down. I'm just going to grab a rubber tip spatula to clean the sides down to make sure that it all cooks together so nothing on the side burns, just to keep it all together. So just going to keep that like that. Believe it or not, this is almost ready. So I'm just going to do the same thing and show you one more time with the other piece. Flatten it down. I'm going to go back to 1, turn on the machine, and put it in. You don't have to work this fast, obviously, by the way. Again, making sure that I have, so I didn't quite use the whole cup of flour. I probably have a teaspoon left maybe, and I'm just going to fold it over itself now and work that gluten. What's really nice about pasta, by the way, is you can change the variation. I'll show you some videos later where I took just frozen spinach, the no-name brand, and just basically cooked it in a frying pan with a little bit of olive oil, and then when it was done, cook. Or you can steam it if you had like fresh spinach or something not frozen. And you're going to put it in a clean tea towel, and you're going to squeeze out as much moisture as you can. And then I'm going to put that fresh spinach in my egg, and with an immersion blender, I'm going to puree the spinach so I get green eggs essentially. And then when I add my flour to that green egg mixture, I'm going to end up with spinach pasta. So if you've ever had green pasta, you're having some type of Swiss chard or spinach flavored pasta. Or I could take a teaspoon or tablespoon of tomato paste and put it in my egg, or I could take sun-dried tomatoes and puree them, and I could make sun-dried tomato pasta. And if you've ever seen like tri-color pasta or other colors, it's basically from the things that are added to it. Usually, when you do a flavored pasta like that, the best dressing is just something of oil and garlic, because you would never want to use a meat sauce or an Alfredo because you would mask the flavor of the flavored pasta. So usually it's done with a just a simple butter sauce or olive oil or something like that. But now that I folded this over, 5 or 6 times, now I'm not going to fold it anymore. I'm just going to put a little bit of flour to make sure it doesn't stick. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to run it through all the way to 8 now. So there's number 2. There's number 3. Number 4. Again, always making sure if I feel it gets a little sticky, I just stop, put a little bit of dusting, brush off the excess, and I keep going. There's number 5. 6. Oops. 7. And 8. So this is beautiful. Might just run it through one more time. Again, I like it really thin. So look at this. From one egg, look at how much pasta this is. So it's incredible. And it's so light and fluffy. It looks like almost like see-through. If I wanted to make ravioli, or I wanted to stuff a shell with like ricotta cheese, or like put like sauteed onion or mushroom, or any type of filling, I probably wouldn't want to go as thin as number 8 or make the pasta too thin, because I don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the wall of the pasta. Like if you're gonna make ravioli, oftentimes you might boil them just for a few seconds, like gnocchi, till they get a little bit soft. Or because the pasta is so fresh, I don't necessarily have to boil like very delicate ravioli or tortellini. I can just put it into a frying pan with a bit of sauce and fry them. I'm going to lie this on the table, okay, to draw out some of the moisture, just like this. This one's a bit long, so I might just cut it in half. What's really cool though is you can take a pastry wheel, just to show you the versatility of pasta. I have a fluted edge on the pastry here. I just cut a piece of this off while it's still soft before it dries. And working on a clean space, if I make little shapes out of this pasta here, if I just square off a couple of rows, I make 2, say, rows of the same, like this, say, and I come back this way and I square off the ends, I have now made myself, about 6 good little pieces of square here. And then look what I can do is I can just take with my finger, because the fact that the pasta is so wet, is I just put a little hole in the middle. If I just cinch my fingers and bring this sort of into itself, and I give it a little squeeze while it's still wet, I have made farfalle or butterfly pasta. There are over 300 shapes of pasta in Italy. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can also take other little rounds, or these are known as what they're called malfatti, these poorly made, these other pieces. So if I was making a bunch of, say, tortellini, and then I, put a little portion scoop and I scooped each one, and then I put another sheet on top, and I take a cookie cutter or a round and I cut out the round, anything that is excess that's on the side, it's not for garbage, okay? You let it dry on the table, and those are the basic old noodles that you could use in things like pasta fagioli, or in soup, or in other types of dishes where the shape or uniformity of the pasta doesn't matter. But you can get creative and make your own shapes. You can take a finger and just put a little impression and roll it, and then when you pull your finger out, it has you can't see it from the camera, but it has a bit of a bow or dimple or bevel to it. And then when you make sauce and you add it together, that helps to trap the sauce. Okay, so I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna let us try the pasta, of course. So normally I would want to let this dry, as I mentioned to you, a little bit longer, but because we're gonna eat it today, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just gonna hang the pasta over this pot so that when it does dry, it doesn't dry to itself. This dye comes off, and then you can choose another dye of your choice. Today I'm going to do fettuccine, just to keep it all the same so it cooks the same. But the same way that the original dye goes on, you put on the shape that you want. This is fettuccine. Put it on, turn it on, make sure it's working. And now here's the really fun part. You just basically take, I'm just going to cut these in half because they're a bit long. I'll cut it in thirds maybe. And then I'm just going to take my machine and take my pasta and then really carefully feed it through. And here's the super satisfying part. I now have, look at this, delicious, amazing fettuccine. So it doesn't stick to itself. I told you how fresh it is. I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to use this cooling rack, and I'm just going to fish the pasta through the cooling rack so it doesn't dry on itself. I'm just going to let it sort of just dry like that for a second, okay, if I wanted to. But because I'm going to use it so fresh today, I can just let it sort of fall on the table. But what I'm telling you is, because it is normally you would want to wait about 10 to 15 minutes for the pasta to dry out. Usually when you buy it in the store, the sheets are a bit drier. When you buy it in the store, they oftentimes come in nests. So it's a little bit wet right now, but they just basically spin it like this, and they sit the pasta down like that. But if, again, it's so fresh like that, if I let it sit like that, it will dry to itself. But we're going to cook it all right now, so it won't be a problem. But I'm just going to run all this through. Like, how satisfying is that? Like, it takes 10 minutes, you know what I mean? Not even to make this, and it's the most delicious dish you can have. It's a bit labor intensive, but again, if you do a lot of this, the best way to get really good pasta is to, double, triple your recipe. And then if you have a wood top table, or you have a nice spring day, open the windows and just let the pasta dry as slowly as possible. One rule of thumb, You can put a little bit of cornmeal. Cornmeal is really nice after the pasta is made because unlike flour, it doesn't stick to the pasta. It allows you to basically keep all this pasta together like this. And then when you put it in cornmeal, it stops it from sticking, okay, to itself. And then the cornmeal, when you dump it in the water, it falls off and goes to the bottom, unlike the flour that sticks to it. So I have a massive box of pasta already here that we already made. So I'm just going to come over here to the water now that it's boiling and my sauce is made. I'm going to show you. Because I didn't put any salt, I need to season the water. Otherwise, things are going to be pretty bland. You might hear some people that are going to say add a little bit of salt to the egg. No, the purists, we season pasta when you cook it. Okay, so you want to make the water as salty as the ocean. So I'm just going to get my tub of salt, put a good amount of salt in here. And then I need to be on my toes, ready to work here. I'm just going to mix this one more time. Just want to adjust my sauce one last time. Going to get the last clean spoon that I have and taste the sauce one more time just to see if it needs any adjustments. Wow, it's pretty good. Maybe just a pinch of salt. It's a little thick, so I'm going to cut it with another half cup of milk. So that brings the milk in this recipe to, I would say, 2 cups now. I believe I said a cup and a half before. And now I'm going to put my pasta in. It's not going to take any time at all. Just going to get myself prepared. I'm going to move this. I'm actually going to move my sauce pot over just right close because I'm just going to use tongs to pull out the pasta. It's okay if I get a bit of pasta water in there. It's going to help me thin out my sauce a little bit. Normally, otherwise, I would go to the sink with a colander. So just going to take nice and close so I don't make a massive mess. Careful not to break the pasta. And I want to try to put it in all at the same time so that it cooks. It doesn't take anything close to about a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in here like this. If I made the nest, it'd be a little bit easier to, oops, and then I'm burning some, so that's why it smells. Okay, I think that's probably enough. This is burning. Just gonna get rid of that burning piece. And with a long pair of tongs, I will probably come and grab this fresh pasta that I made. That one's a bit dry. This one won't take as long, so now I'll add this one in as well, just so it doesn't all stick to itself. I'll put this in. And I'm gonna say my pasta's done. I kid you not. I'm gonna finish cooking it in the sauce. So look at this. I'm gonna pick this up. I'm gonna put it right in here. Watch this. And I'm okay to get a bunch of this pasta water in here. Totally fine with that. And I'm just turning this stove on low. I'm just gonna mix this together in the sauce. You always, where possible, want to try to finish cooking your pasta in the sauce so that the last little bit of flavor of anything really goes inside. I might just switch to a spaghetti spoon if I have one here. Yeah, this is called a spaghetti spoon. It's really handy. It's going to help me pull out any last little bits. Again, a little bit of that water is nice because it's thickening, or thinning out my sauce. A lot of pasta here. Wow, hope you guys are hungry. Wow, I put a lot of pasta. Okay, I got the gist of it, or the most of it. So I'm going to shut this off. Just move this over here and then go back to my trusty spatula here, or excuse me, tongs. And just cook this for maybe, without making a mess, 30 seconds or so. Let's give a little shake from time to time. And if I feel that it's too thick, okay, I can add a little bit of the pasta water. A lot of the chefs keep the pasta water handy, and they just basically dump a little bit of that water in there like that. Good thing I'm not at home. I'd get in a lot of trouble from my wife, but I'm not cleaning the stove today. But this looks ready to rock and roll here. Look at this. Amazing. Again, I like my pasta al dente. It's very difficult to get al dente pasta with this, but I think if this doesn't knock your socks off, I don't know what will. I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to come over there, and I'm going to let you all try some. Okay? Look at that. It looks amazing. Simple. Super heavy. And then I'm just going to get a bunch of bowls. Nothing says breakfast like pasta, right? I'm going to use these guys right here. And sorry, I need a few more bowls. And just make sure you want to mix it from below. And just get a nice portion for each person. Try not to make a mess of the outside of the pot. One of the things about fresh egg pasta, though, is especially with an Alfredo, you need to eat it pretty quickly. Otherwise, if you let this sit, like again, the flour in the pasta just starts to thicken the other stuff, and then it makes it really, really hard to eat. So it's oops, whoa, that's a huge portion. It's best eaten really fresh. You could put a little bit of lemon zest in the Alfredo as well, of course. You could add the chili flakes. I'll let you guys add what you want, but you have to have. Notice I didn't put any cheese in this. I didn't make this a Mornay. This is like the proper Alfredo, but we're gonna add some cheese, Parmesan cheese to it now. And this is the best. breakfast of champions. Wow, that's a lot of pasta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, oops, like this. So we'll do that, then we can always have seconds. So, and then you have to take Parmesan cheese, which is the best part. Undisputed king of cheeses. There you go. And without further ado, we're going to try it. So I'll put some forks here. Come and try it while it's hot because it does set. Be honest, it might need, you saw how fast I made that, but I'd like you to, obviously if I had some fresh bread going with this, that would be awesome. You're welcome. So usually, like, you eat it with a spoon. You never know that. You're supposed to eat, like, the purists put the spoon and then you spin the pasta on the fork and on the spoon. But you can, there's a bit more, but you just kind of want to eat it sort of somewhat quickly because it does set, okay? Because it's so fresh. Quentin, would you like to try some?
Good morning, staff. Pardon the interruption. Will the driver of Mercedes parked in the front of our building, license plate CC?
It's Alfredo pasta.
142.
You're welcome.
Your windows are down. Thank you.
Ooh. Verdict? Any good? Tasty? No? So it's a little thick, like I said. Like, it's really, now you can sort of see why it's really important to get the noodles thin, but maybe it just needs a touch of salt. But I think it's pretty good. If anybody wants chili flakes. There's a little bit more here. Yeah. First time trying pasta, like in general?
Yeah.
Like ever?
Yeah.
Like any kind of pasta?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
Like
tried.
never like penne or really?
Yeah, but I've never
Wow, it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I like it. But yeah, I see it gets really thick really quickly. But oh my God, it's so good. If you had like chicken bits or bacon, you make like chicken and bacon Alfredo, put like peas, mushrooms. There's really so many different